Hello there. I thought I would spend a few minutes looking at the anatomy of a note. So I've set up this particular piano roll here with three notes. A short one that is starting at the half beat and lasting a half beat. This one is 1.5 beat and goes on for 2 beats, and this one goes on for 4 beats. So three different notes, and I want to look at the anatomy of a note. In other words, what is a note? How is it put together? So when you look at this, if you think of a piano, at the very beginning of the note is when you press the key, and the end of the note is when you release the key. All right, so what happens with these events? So the length of the note is dependent on how long you hold the note down. Now again, if you look at a piano closely, you press the note down and what happens is a little hammer inside the piano will strike the piano wire and make a sound. And when you let go of the key, then a little felt pad will go against the piano wires and stop or attenuate the sound. It will mute the sound, it will stop it. So that's what happens here. Same thing with the very long note. You press the key and you hold it in this case, for 2 seconds, and you will notice that after you first press the key and you hold it in, there's the hammer hitting the wire, making the sound, and the sound slowly decays or deteriorates. And at some point, either it will decay to a level you can't hear anymore, or you let go of the key and it goes away completely. So it depends on how long it takes for the sound to decay by itself. If you were to hold this note for a very, very, very long time, the hammer strikes, the sound happens, and after a certain amount of time it disappears completely. And even if you hold the note forever, it doesn't really matter. When you let go of it, nothing happens because the sound is already gone. So that's the basic anatomy of a note. That's on a piano. You have, of course, different kinds of instruments. So if you hit a drum, same thing. You have your drumstick, you hit it, makes the sound, and then eventually the sound dies out. In the case of a drum, it typically dies out pretty quickly compared to a piano or a guitar string. But you will notice sometimes a drummer will put his hand on the drum to attenuate or mute the sound, or will reach over to the cymbal and grab it to stop the sound. So that's the end of the note that's being forced by the drummer. Now, of course, all kinds of things go on when the hammer or the drumstick hits the instrument. You'll have stretching of the membrane of the drum, you have stretching of the string on a guitar or a piano wire. The frequencies will go berserk for a minute, or I should say a split second. And then shortly after that, there will be a nice sound. And then again, when the felt stops the note, there's probably some physical distortions going on there as well. So let's hear these three notes and see what it sounds like. Let's try that one more time. Okay, fairly straightforward sound. Now let's look at the sound design, and I've got this open here. Typical sine wave going to my oscillator at the given note frequency, and the amplitude is dictated by this oscillator using an envelope frequency, so depending on the length of the note or the envelope of the note. And here's the wave controlling that amplitude or the volume. Let me open this up, and this is a typical ADSR structure. Let me zoom out here. Okay, ADSR, what does that stand for? It stands for attack, decay, sustain, and release. So there's 4 parts to it, and that's the standard definition here that we're looking at. The attack is the very first part, how long it takes for the note to go to full volume. Then there's a bit of a decay, and then there's a sustain, so the note is held at that volume until you release. And then at that time, it very quickly decays to nothing. Now, you could, of course, make that very quick so that when you play the note, notice how it dies away very quickly versus, let me zoom out again, versus something like this. Notice how it fades away very slowly. So typical piano is a little shorter than that. So you can adjust that however you want. Now, I don't like the definition of ADSR and how it's put together. This sustain, if you go up to a piano, it doesn't hold that note at the same level. So I have an issue with that. That's, from what I read out there, different people have slightly different definitions. Well, I have my own, so there. If I change this decay to be, let's say, 80% decay per second, in other words, in 1 second it would decay 80%. Here it is. I could have used a slope function here and I didn't, and yeah, I'm not sure if what I'm going to do about that yet. That might change that definition, but whatever it is, it dies away. So let's hear what that sounds like. Oop. Notice that last note dies away quite quickly, and in fact this particular time here is the release time. Notice it says 0. So this is really 2 events in one. There's hitting the key is right here. That's when you press the key down. It does its shenanigans, the hammer hitting the string, everything goes berserk, total chaos. Then it has the nice sound that decays slowly, and then here's when you release it. Now, of course, the release part right here could happen at different time depending on the note. So if, notice down here 1.1, so if I bring this down to, let's say, well, 1.6 seconds, well, the note dies away before you release the hammer, before you release the note, sorry. So this part over here does nothing. It's basically you've released the key after the sound has completely died away. That's what's happening on the last note. I could move this much closer, and as you can see, on a short note that lasts only a quarter second, this is what you would end up with for your ADSR. So it goes loud, sustains just a little bit, and then dies away. So that's your typical ADSR. Now, moving this around doesn't affect anything. This is your sample note. So if your note was 0.7 second long, this is what it would look like. If your note was 1 second. Here it is. This is what it would look like. And your 90% or 50% can affect the decay here of the note. Let's try this one. Now to see what it really sounds like at the end here, let me add a couple points. Here's one, and I'll do this, and here's another. Okay, so what I've done here is that the volume will keep going down, and then when I release the key, totally crazy things happen, and the note just goes really loud for a little bit. Here it is. Notice that little bleep at the end. So if I increase the decay here to 90%, so on a long note, you'd get the bleep long after the note has completely decayed away. See that? Let me move this to get a bit of a louder bleep. Check this out. Okay, so it's kind of silly, but there you have it. So the length of the note determines when you release the key and where it is in the decay process. So if you released a note quicker, then you have a bleep that is sooner as part of the note. Okay, so this is the basic anatomy of a note. Now, of course, I didn't talk about something called velocity. So when you press a key on a piano, you can press it softly, or you can press it very fast and hard. So what that does typically is affect this attack. So if you do it fast and hard, you're increasing the attack, and you can even do something like that. So in a traditional model, that's a decay, excuse me, a decay of 0. And maybe the note will last a little longer this way. Let's try that. All right, that's hard to notice. So let me delete this point and delete this one. And let's try that again. All right, doesn't it sound a little louder because of this high volume part here at the beginning? Let's try that again. The attack here at the beginning has a bit of a pluck sound to it, like when you pluck a guitar string. Let's move it out and try again. See that? Versus I'm breaking up here. Let's try that again. All right. So you can change the sound at the beginning as well as at the end. So I could add some more points here and do something like that maybe. So there's a bit of a flutter at the beginning. Let's try that again. So very easy to modify the way a note goes depending on the length of the note and how many points you put in here. So totally up to you how you do this. I could add as many points as I want here and do all kinds of fancy stuff. Maybe I want to do something like this, bring that up there, bring that down here. Why not? And this back up. I don't know what this is going to do, but here you go. Yeah, interesting. I'm sure an artist can do something with that. So there you go. Basic anatomy of a note. Oh, one thing I should bring up. Here we're just dealing with the volume, the frequency of the note throughout the duration of the note is determined by the note itself. So let me go back to the piano roll. So the frequency is determined by where you put the note. So here we go. All right. On this particular object, this wave, this is controlling the volume, but I could also control the frequency. So although I'm hitting middle C, I could have it change the frequency at various stages. I'm going to talk about that in a separate video about FM. So that's all I wanted to say about amplitude modulation, specifically the envelope and the anatomy of a note. Thanks for watching.